All right.
So, what's your business? What's your name? What do you do?
My name's Anyssa Loux. I own Paws Canine Training in Middle Tennessee. We're a dog training company that specializes in off-leash obedience, pet dog stuff. Um, so yeah, that's what we do.
Why'd you get started with that? Did you grow up with dogs?
Yeah, so I grew up with dogs. I had one that passed away when I was super young. And then I decided in high school that I wanted to do something like in the dog field. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so when I went off to college, I went to Boise State in Idaho. While I was in school there, I started working at a dog training company and I adopted my first dog. And I didn't know what to do with her. I didn't know how to train her. I didn't know anything about her. She was basically a feral dog when I got her, and they rescued her off the streets. And so I started working there, and their business model is pretty cool. We start at the bottom and just kind of work your way up. So you start in the office, you learn customer service skills, things like that. And then if you express interest in wanting to train, they will teach you. So you kind of move through the ranks, and within 6 months, I was the head of their board and train program.
Ooh, moving up fast.
Yeah, so I moved up pretty quickly. At the time, I met my ex-husband, who we moved here to open my business in 2020 during COVID.
Why'd you move here from Idaho?
So I came here for my 21st birthday rather than going to Vegas, like everybody else does. And I fell in love with it here. And I had made a comment one day that I wanted to move here and open a business. And so I made it happen. And
But why'd you move here instead of Vegas, or go here instead of Vegas for your birthday?
I'm not a big, like, I love country music. I love the vibe of that. I wasn't super into the whole, like, Vegas theme. I wanted something
Losing
more.
all your money.
Yeah. I wanted something more, like, kind of down to earth. And obviously, when you come to Nashville, you go to all the regular Nashville spots, you know, all Broadway and all of that. And so I think I fell in love with that and wanted to move here. So 2 years later, I moved here.
Oh, that was only 2 years ago?
No. So I moved here. It's kind of a long story, but I moved here in 2020, and then at the end of COVID, we ended up moving back to Idaho. So I've been here again since 2022.
Oh, okay.
So we did like a lot of moving. COVID kind of threw some things in the mix and just kind of put a wrench in a lot of stuff. And, you know, it was expensive to live during COVID. So we ended up moving back home, saved up a little bit of money, and then moved back here and bought a house. And here we are 2 years later. So
How many dogs do you own?
My own?
Yeah.
I have 5, soon to be 6. I'm a little crazy, but I also do dog sports with my working dogs. So I don't just have like a bunch of dogs that just like lay around all day. They get to do sports and
So you're
stuff like
training
that.
other people's dogs and your own?
Yeah. It's like right now at the house, there's 9 dogs. 5 of them are mine. When people hear like a big number, they're like, "Oh my gosh, why do you have so many dogs?" I'm like, half of those are mine. So yeah, we have 4 right now. 2 are just boarding dogs that have gone through training previously, and then 2 are board and trained dogs that are currently going through.
What's a boarding dog?
So for us, the difference between like a board and train and a boarding is board and trained dogs get 3 to 4 sessions of training a day. And then our boarding dogs, generally speaking, will get 1 to 2. So they're not as intense as a board and train is. It's just like when people go out of town, they can come let their dog stay with us. We offer that for clients. But only client dogs are allowed to come and stay. So
How time consuming is that?
it's
Having
a
to train
lot.
all these dogs?
It's a lot. I look down at the clock a lot, and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, where did the day go?
Yeah.
But I also get up at 5. I think one of the most important things when you're a business owner or doing something like I do is you have to take care of yourself first. So I get up, I go to the gym in the morning before I take care of the dogs. That way when I come back, I can literally just start training for the whole day. So usually I do 15-hour days like that's active work. That, I mean, you could technically say 24 hours a day.
Right, yeah.
Because the dogs are always there and you always have to make sure that they're taken care of, they're fed, they're watered, pottied, all of that. But generally speaking, I do about 15-hour days of like active training work.
Okay, so you said you knew you wanted to do something like this in high school. So what did you start with? Was it just that job where you moved
No,
up?
so when I was in when I went to college. So I lived in, born and raised in California. Grew up in Southern
Oh,
California. I got a scholarship to go to Boise State. So Boise State gave me an academic scholarship. I got my degree in psychology there. But before I started working at the dog training company, I worked at a doggy daycare. So that was kind of my first introduction to being around a large group of dogs a lot. Um, and so for me, it was a good stepping stone because knowing what I know now, doggy daycares are not the best place for people to take their
why?
dogs. Uh, Most of the staff that's a broad statement, but a lot of the time, the staff that are working there, they're not trained in canine behavior. They don't understand body language. They don't know how to read dogs very well. And so that's why there's a lot of dog fights that happen, like at doggy daycares or dog parks, because people just think, oh, our dogs are playing and they're having fun. And it's like, no, that dog's really stressed. Like, that dog needs a break. You need to pull that dog out. So they're a good moneymaker, but for dogs' cognitive function, most of the time it's not the best route for people to go.
So you went to college for psychology?
Mm-hmm.
So how much of that applies to dogs? Because
A
I'm imagining
lot.
college it was basically people, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, the brain functions are pretty much the same. There's things that dogs can't cognitively comprehend like humans do. Like, they don't have the cognitive ability to understand time like we do. So, a lot of times people will ask me when when their dog comes for a board and train, like, oh, will they forget me? It's like, no, they won't. They don't have like that ability. The initial introduction might be a little bit, kind of awkward at first because the dog's been with me for so long that now they have to get used to their owner's smell again. But usually within like 30 seconds, they recognize their owner. But it's a lot of like understanding the different parts of the brain and how to activate certain parts and inhibit other parts of the brain. It's pretty complex. If you don't know what you're doing, it's really hard.
It sounds like it.
It's really hard, yeah.
So when you have people bring their dogs, I imagine some of them are kind of have bad behavior.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that, especially
Yeah.
with a bunch of other dogs in the
Yeah,
same house?
so we have requirements for like board and train programs. So I don't take any dogs that aren't crate trained because in between their sessions or at night or like today with me having to leave, they go in their crates. That's mainly for safety issues. I don't, like I have a dog right now. She's not dog friendly and she's not really people friendly. So you can't really put a dog like that in a situation where they're going to start a dog fight because they're uncomfortable. So that's our main requirement is, the crate training. That's a huge thing. But a lot of the times, if I do get in dogs that are people reactive or people aggressive, I'll do some sessions with the owner prior to the dog dropping off. So that way the dog is at least familiar with me. And generally speaking, when they drop the dog off, I just take the dog and have the owners leave right away. Like, we don't make it this big deal of like, oh my gosh, Fluffy's going to school. I'm going to miss you so much. Like, because then the dog can sense that you give off a different chemo marker, a different smell, and the dog can go into a state of panic as to like, why are you freaking out?
Yeah.
I'm just going here. Like, there's nothing to worry about, so.
That's not so. When you're training these dogs, do you get like a little over attached to them and get sad when you have to
Yeah,
give them
so
back?
that's a funny question. So I have a dog right now that's at my house boarding. I've known her since she was 4 months old. She just is about to turn 2. And my client, I'm like the only one outside of my client that can really handle this dog because she's a flat coat retriever. Anybody that knows anything about flat coat retrievers is they're just high strung all the time. She's just like, you would think she's on drugs all the time. So it's funny because she has in her will that if she ever passes away, I'm the power of attorney for her dog. So I would like take her dog if she passed away.
Did you cry when they told you that?
I was a little like, oh, like I'm very honored. That's really cool that she like did that. I never expected that. But yeah, I mean, I do get attached to him, but I also understand that like there's no way I could keep all these dogs. And it's also more rewarding for me to see the dog's progress when they go back home with the owner and
Right.
teach the owner after that and everything they need to know. So, but yeah, I have some favorites for sure that I would take in a heartbeat if the owner was like, I couldn't keep them anymore. I'd have to find space, but I'd make it work. So
Is it harder to deal with the dogs or the people?
It depends, but I would say the humans is the more difficult part because we're the ones that have bad habits. We're the ones that have things we have to break, and so a lot of the time that is the struggle when dogs go back home. Is dogs are so used to being, taught their commands like once or twice, or said their commands once or twice, where the owners like they think that getting louder is going to make the dog listen more, and so habits like that is really difficult for people to break.
Oh, well, what are the other bad habits? So, being loud doesn't make the dog learn better.
Yeah, that's one of them. And then I have a lot of clients that their dogs are on e-collars, which is mainly used for off-leash work.
What's an e-collar?
So an e-collar is a TENS unit that's used to. I use it to basically tap a dog on a shoulder at a distance. It's a handheld tool that has a remote and it has a receiver. So the ones that I use have up to half a mile range, where it has a tone, of vibrate, and a stim. On there, we mainly use the tone and the stim. I'm not so much a fan of the vibrate, but it's basically an electronic collar that can communicate to the dog at a distance.
What are the other bad
The
habits?
other bad habits, I get clients that jump ahead too fast. They don't follow protocols. I would say that that's a really bad habit that clients have. But also, I would say the biggest thing that I run into is I'm an open book. I tell my clients, you can ask me anything. I'm always here for you. People feel bad to reach out and ask for help. So I would say that utilizing me as their resource, a lot of people don't do. And I would say that's a bad habit for sure.
Oh, is not contacting you?
Because they pay for that.
Yeah. But that adds more to the job, right? So now you're taking care of all their dogs, feeding them, having to wake up for whatever.
Yeah.
And then do you have people calling, texting at night like, oh my
God. So I do pretty well about trying to set business hours where I respond to people. If it's not a dire emergency and I don't have their dog, most of my clients are very understanding of like, I have a life too. And so they try not to muddy the waters of like texting me at 11 o'clock at night, like, Fido won't go potty on a leash. What do I do? Like, I don't really get that so much. But yeah, I mean, that's part of what my clients pay for. Like, our price point is fairly high for training, but they pay for lifetime support too. So they get that for as long as they have their dog, whether that's 2 years down the road or the dog lives till it's 15, they can always contact. They'll always have my information to ask for help. So yeah, I mean, it does add to the daily duties, but I wouldn't have it any other way. That's what they pay for. So
you obviously love what you do.
I do. I have my dogs tattooed on me, so I definitely am a little bit of an animal nut for sure.
Is that their paws?
Yeah. So it's 4 of my dogs that I have. The newest one that I got that I kind of like rescued, he's not on here because there's no space. But yeah.
So what's the typical problems dogs have to where the owners bring them to you?
I would say the biggest issue that I run into with clients that I see a lot is leash reactivity. So leash reactivity can stem anywhere from lack of like biological fulfillment, just the daily needs that dogs need. It can stem from genetics. It can stem from a learned behavior. And reactivity can range anywhere from, overly excited where they want to go greet everybody, or it can be on the other end of the spectrum where the dog is super fearful and they're aggressive and they're reacting to create space so the people or dogs don't come into their bubble. I would say that is the biggest issue that a lot of like Nashville dog owners have, because most of the clientele here, there are a lot of rescue dogs, and so you don't really know their backstory. And there are a lot of downtown clients too, like the Gulch, Germantown, East Nashville, a lot of those places that are apartments where people don't have a yard and the dogs are constantly stimulated and constantly around other dogs. That's a big challenge that I see with a lot of clients.
How do you start fixing that?
You have to build a relationship first with the dog. At least this is the way I do it. Depends on, other trainers if you ask other trainers. But for us, like, I always start with the relationship building with the dog. So that's playing tug, doing biological fulfillment, genetic fulfillment.
What's biological fulfillment?
So biological fulfillment, it's kind of a complicated explanation, but there are needs that dogs have every single day. So to name a few of those, dogs want to chase things. They want to dig. They want to catch things. They want to play tug. They want to kill stuff. Like all of that is genetically innate in a dog.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times dogs don't get those needs met every single day. And if they're not getting those needs met, then that can turn over into behavior issues. So that's what we mean by biological fulfillment. Is it's not just feeding your dog, watering your dog, potting your dog, and taking them for a walk.
It's not just keeping them alive.
Yes.
Making sure they have a life.
There's a lot more to it than a lot of people think there is, for sure. So
what do you do if a dog's in an apartment, right? Living there, you train the dog and get it, obviously at your place, it's going to have those biological needs met. When it goes back to the apartment, how does the owner?
So a lot of the times, like, let's talk about a board and train program. So there are pros and cons to board and trains and why they work for reactive dogs. A lot of the times what has happened in that sort of environment where the dog has learned to rehearse that behavior, if you remove them from that environment and put them kind of in like a stale environment, then you can start to focus on biological fulfillment, genetic fulfillment. Then you can start to address the behavior. Once the dog goes back home, they've had 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks of learning different coping strategies and ways to basically feel their emotions in a healthier way. And then you teach the client how to maintain what the dog has learned while they were in training. So they go through a series of lessons afterwards where I teach them everything they need to know. You ask any of my clients, I give them so many handouts so that way they can be successful and they know exactly what biological fulfillment is. All of our clients, generally speaking, will get like a customized like a customized schedule of like what I do with their dog during the day so that they can do their best to maintain that. Now, I don't expect clients to like follow it to a T because they don't have as much time as I do to train the dog every day.
Right.
So at that point, it's kind of just a maintenance training and how to take these little pieces and put it back in that environment and make sure that the dog is successful.
Do you, depending on the breed, have different methods?
I would say, you're not going to train like a dachshund the way you would train like a Great Dane, right? They're genetically just not the same. So I wouldn't say methods are different. Now, your training approach, depending on the dog, should be different. You should always be training the dog and the owner in front of you, not just the dog, because what might work for the dog might not work for the owner. So you have to find that common balance of what's going to work for both. A lot of people just train the dog in front of them, but they don't think about the owner on the other end of the leash. So I would say your methods are interchangeable, but you have concepts that are the same. You have like your core concepts that you refer back to all the time. And then you can take little bits and pieces of different methods and apply it to that dog. Because the way that I would train one of my working dogs is not the same way I would train like a client's husky. They're different. They're very, very different. The breeds are just not what a lab needs, a husky does not need, and vice versa. Huskies, people have this stigma that huskies need 5 miles to run a day, and they need to run their husky 5 miles a day. I am not running my lab 5 miles a day. That's way too much.
So do you take these dogs on walks all at once?
Are you
walking around with the 10 leashes?
No, I'm not the cool people on TikTok that do like the pack walks and stuff. No, so the way that like our kind of structure works is we get up, or I get up, usually between 6 and 6:30 to take care of the dogs if I'm not already up from going to the gym that morning. All the dogs that can go in a play group will go outside and play for an hour, hour and a half in the morning just to go out there, potty. We have a nice big fenced-in backyard for them to go and run around in. And then they will come back in. They'll get fed breakfast in their kennels. If we're doing some sort of training that needs food involved, I'll use some of their food, but I don't withhold all meals. Like I will feed the dog in the kennel. If they'll eat it, if they don't want to eat it, then generally speaking, we'll go outside and I'll use it for training in the morning. So they really only interact with each other if they're in a play group. The rest of the time is one-on-one time spent with me doing training, learning these new concepts and things that they need to learn. But yeah, I mean, they get walked and things like that. But to be quite honest, dogs are more fulfilled if they're mentally fulfilled versus physically fulfilled. So they really get their walks like during our training sessions. And then like when we go on field trips and things like that, they get a lot.
Field trips?
Yeah.
To where?
No we go museums? Anywhere. No.
Oh, they love museums. So
I know. We so I'll take the dogs. Like Home Depot is always a favorite. We go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply. Centennial is a big place that we go a lot. We'll go to any like dog friendly events, like pretty much anywhere that you could think of that you could take a dog in Middle Tennessee. We do our best to get client dogs out to as many field trips as we can before they go home, because that's how you're going to know that the dog knows what they've learned, is if you can take it in one environment, put them in another environment, and just kind of keep testing them in all these different places. If you don't do that and you just train at a house at a sterile environment and then the dog goes back home, the likelihood of the dog understanding that information is very, very slim, because they haven't learned to do what's called generalizing, which is where they take what they've learned in one environment, put it in another one, and just kind of transfer it back and forth.
Oh, that's smart. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So if you think about a concept of like, I have had clients that say, my dog knows how to sit inside, but not outside. Well, if you haven't taught the dog how to sit outside, of course they're not going to know, right?
That's
so it's the same thing. If you've taught your dog how to walk on a leash in your house, and then you take them to Home Depot, but they've never been to Home Depot in their whole entire life, and you've never practiced it, obviously the dog's going to have a little bit of some issues because they've never been to that environment. They haven't learned the concept in that new environment. So that's one of the things that we really focus on once the dog gets to that point that they're ready for field trips, is we go out in public as much as possible.
That's fun.
It is fun.
Do you take them in groups in public, small groups, or
no? So what we do is I have a truck, and there's kennels in the truck. The dogs get transported in crates, because if we ever get in a car accident, I don't want them to fall out of the car or anything like that. And I'll take dogs one at a time. So if I have 2 in for training and it's hot, obviously we try to go either early morning to do a field trip or later in the evening, but it's all individual time. And then I have some clients that are graduated, that they'll meet up with us, and we'll do distraction training and stuff like that. So it's good for the in-training dogs to get some extra practice around dogs that are graduated that aren't going to react or aren't going to, cause issues. Just being around some other dogs is helpful too.
So how long have you been doing this?
I got into dog training in 2019. So
about
what is that? 5 years? Yeah.
How many dogs do you think you've trained in that time?
Oh gosh. The facility that I used to work at, so when you oversee a department in like a dog training company, I was responsible for all those dogs in the board and train program. So like if they weren't ready to go home, it fell on me, even though it might have not been my fault. I'm like at the top. So this was a large scale facility, so kind of keep that in mind, like $1 million company. I would say we did between 30 to 40 board and train dogs a year or a month. So I worked there for 2 years. So I don't know the math on that. That's a lot of dogs. And then myself personally, in the last 2 years, I've probably trained 50 to 55 clients in Middle Tennessee, which might not seem like a lot, but for someone that does it all by themselves, like I do all aspects of the business by myself, that's a lot of dogs. That's a lot.
So what other aspects are behind, like they think of a dog trainer and they know you have the dogs at your house and train the dogs, spend time with them, talking to the owners.
Yeah.
But what's the other stuff that people don't think about running a business?
Social media. Social media is a huge time-consuming part of a business, because nowadays everything is just, you pull up your phone, you can look up anything on your phone. So that's going to be the easiest way to get clientele, is on like Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, whatever your major platform is. I would say social media is the most time-consuming part of my job, because there are times where I want to record a session or I need to record a session, but propping up my phone, like hitting record, going through editing the footage, or like cutting it down to where it would fit in an Instagram story, is like, it takes a lot of time. So social media is the biggest one. I do all of the admin work. So like responding to emails, calling clients, group messages with clients, sending them pre-work videos, lessons. Driving to Nashville is a big thing. I do that a lot for clients. So that's also very time consuming. Invoices, scheduling, there's a lot that goes into it. Making sure your taxes get done, going through your QuickBooks, where it automates all of your transactions for you, and like deciphering if it was a personal transaction or a business transaction, doing your monthly statements to the Secretary of State. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into being a business owner.
Now, after you said all that, training the dog sounds like the relaxing.
It is. Yeah, you have moments where you're like, I would say admin work is like my least favorite thing. I hate doing admin work. Yeah, it's not very fun, but it's necessary, because if you don't stay up to date on all your stuff with the state, like they can take away your license and your business can get closed.
Oh, you have to be licensed.
Yeah, so we're an LLC. So with an LLC, you have to have a business license and a license within your county. So for us, I didn't have to pay like an obscene amount of money, but we did have to have like a fire inspection done to make sure like if a fire were ever to break out, like there's multiple points of exit, so everybody's safe, because we're a home-based business. So we don't have a training facility or anything like that. That's in the works currently, is building a training facility. But yeah, it's.
Do you have doggy doors in each one of your doors?
No. So the way that my place is set up is it's like a normal house. It's actually a pretty cool setup. On one side of the house is like the main living room, and then there's a bedroom upstairs, and that's usually where my dogs hang out during the day. Is in the downstairs area, and then on the other side of the home, I have a gate that's set up in the middle of the home. That literally I can just open up my client's dog room. It's called the client dog room. And they have all their kennels in there, and I can just open up their crates and they can just run outside. So it's a pretty cool setup how it is. Dog doors would be cool. That would just be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Outdoor runs would be a better alternative for that, so dogs could go outside during the day and like hang out, but be enclosed, and I don't have to worry about them like jumping over a fence, although we have never had that issue. That would be a good alternative to a doggy door for sure.
Have you ever trained any other animals, or is it strictly dogs?
Just dogs. I have a cat that I've done like some clicker training with her, but
What's clicker training?
So clicker is like a little device that has a button on it that makes a noise that you can condition it to the dog, where basically the dog can learn if they hear that sound, like food is coming, it becomes a predictor of a reward. So I've done that with my cat, and she sometimes I'll click it and she'll come running. If she's dead asleep, she'll come running and she'll come get her little treat. It's kind of cute actually. So
does she like that you're having all these dogs around?
So I get a lot of clients that say like, I hate cats. Cats are, like we don't like cats. And I'm like, well, you haven't met Whiskey yet. Whiskey is the coolest dog cat, like dog friendly cat that there ever is. I mean, she was raised with 5 other dogs. So she's very, like, she drinks out of the dog water bowl. Like, she doesn't have her own little water bowl. She drinks out of the dog bucket. She's very much a dog in a cat body for sure.
Do you have clients that bring you their dogs that they're just not getting along with the other pets, like cats or anything?
Yeah.
What do you do to fix that?
So you have to really analyze if it's like a genetic issue, right? There are some dogs that are more prone to having other animal aggression. A lot of bully breeds are very prone to that. Pit bulls and those types of dogs, they weren't bred for being nanny dogs. They were bred for fighting dogs. And that's, a lot of people don't understand that. And so when I get clients that have like a bully breed that is experiencing dog aggression, right, you have to say, well, some of this is a genetic issue, because it is. You can't train genetics out of a dog. And so there are some dogs where, clients just want management, meaning they just want to know how to manage their dog in a certain situation if they have a reaction. And then you get clients that are like, I want you to do, as much as you can training wise to see, if this is something that not necessarily that can be reversed, but if we can find, an alternative set of coping strategies for this dog to where when they see another dog or they have high prey drive and they want to chase a squirrel or something like that, we can give them something else to do instead. So
when you get these dogs, and how many do you take on at once?
I prefer to only take in 2 for actual board and trains. There are some times where we have overlaps with boarding dogs. So remember, boarding dogs are not in as an intensive a rotation as the board and trains are, because they've already been trained. They get maintenance training while they're there, but I really only like to take 2.
Yeah.
But we do, like right now I have 4 because there's just kind of an overlap. In April, or we're in April now, but March is usually a pretty busy month for us because everybody's going on spring break, all of the things, everybody's going on vacations. And so in March, we tend to have a little bit of a higher volume. I only have 5 kennels for clients. So once those 5 kennels are filled, I don't take any more dogs. I refer people to other trainers or friends that I know that pet sit, things like that. I prefer to only take 2
Yeah.
though. But we're growing at such a fast rate that it's really hard for me to only take 2, because people come to us because we are a home-based business and we don't have a giant, training facility where the dogs literally just train on a cement floor. The dogs train on grass at my house. Like, that's where they learn everything, is on grass.
Well, that sounds a lot better.
Yeah, it is a lot better because it's more real life, right? Unless you live in downtown Nashville, your dog's going to touch grass,
Hopefully for the dog.
Hopefully for the dog, right? It's a biological thing that they need. They need to touch grass. They need to like feel the earth. I know that sounds so like,
well, I think people
hippie.
do too.
Yeah. It's definitely this. You can tell dogs that have come from a training facility. Like, I wouldn't say fixed dogs, but I have worked with other clients that have gone to other trainers in Middle Tennessee that have been at one of those like big box facilities, like your I'm not going to say the names of the companies, but your bigger box facilities where the dogs just didn't get quality training and they were literally shoved in, did a 2-week board and train, and then went home. Like, you can't, 2-week board and trains are not beneficial at all for any dog.
So how long is a good time?
So what we do is I do a minimum stay. So I do a minimum of a 4-week stay, depending on the client's goals. If I get in like an 8-week-old puppy and the client just wants crate and potty training, then generally speaking, we'll do like a 14 to 21 day program. Nothing intense like a regular dog would be, meaning like an older dog. So we do minimum stays for a couple reasons. The first reason is I don't know how long it's going to take a dog to go through what's called a decompression period. Anytime a dog comes into a new environment, they have their decompression period where they're relaxing. We get them back to kind of a base level of just like not being so anxious, because there are dogs that have a hard time adjusting being away from home. And so when they're in that headspace, you can't train them. Right. They're not going to retain anything. So generally speaking, dogs, I've had dogs come in and they decompress after 4 days. I had a dog come in one time and it took her 10 days to decompress. So during those 10 days, we're not really doing a whole lot of training. So that's why we do a minimum stay, because I prefer to teach the dog rather than force the dog to have to do things. Because if you force the dog, you're just going to, diminish their personality, which is not the whole point of training. The whole point of training is to take their personality, whether it's bubbly and crazy and happy, and channel it into other aspects of training, and make sure that you can keep that happy personality. And also, like I said, I'm just not in the business of forcing dogs to do things. It allows the dog to decompress and adjust at their own pace before we really start intense training. So generally speaking, most dogs will stay 4 to 5 weeks. I have a dog right now that she's here for a 6-week program, but she'll probably have to come back. I have a vacation where she's going to go home. So she's probably going to have to come back after that because she's going to need more training. She's people aggressive. So when you deal with a people aggressive dog like that, it takes a lot of time to rewire the brain.
And how dangerous can that get?
It can get pretty dangerous depending on, let me back up. It can get dangerous for sure, right? Any dog that has people aggression, anything like that, even dog aggression too, it can be dangerous, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But a lot of the times I take proper precautions, or not a lot of the time, but all the time we take precautions to make sure that the dogs aren't going to be put in a predicament to where they feel like they have to bite, or they do bite, something like that, because then you have that on your hands of like, I have to call the owner and be like, your dog bit somebody, now we have this big issue, right?
Oh yeah.
I've never had that happen.
Oh really?
Never had that happen. Nope. I've never had any incidences within the business of like a client dog bit somebody or got in a dog fight while they were with us. Like, we're very, very particular about how we do things, so that way we can prevent that. Now you have your dogs that like they get scrapes and cuts and things like that from playing, and that's normal, right? Their dogs are going to get scuffed up and stuff. Like it says in our training contracts, like your dogs may come home more muscular, they might have a couple scrapes on them and stuff like that. But just so people know, and if anything like that does happen, I tell clients too right away, like, hey, this happened, I just want you to have a picture of it so we can document it, and I'll keep you posted on if we need to go to the vet, anything like that. So
Well, what about you? Has someone's dog ever beat you up?
nope. I'm lucky, I've never been bit. But I also haven't really taken severe behavior cases up until this current one that I have. I just recently did a continuing education course with a behavior modification trainer. And so I learned a lot of stuff from him, and I have intentions to go back and continue to learn from him, because he lives in downtown Manhattan. He is a phenomenal trainer. The man is a wealth of knowledge. But no, I've never been bit.
That's
I'm
crazy.
lucky.
I thought you'd
Yeah.
have like chainmail
No. There are dogs like that where you do have to order those types of things, where they do make those chain gloves to where if that's the only way that you can get the dog out of the kennel, like you have to reach in there and get the dog out. Well, if the dog's going to bite you, you have to be protected. So yeah, they do make those, but I do not own any.
What kind of how does that affect the other dogs when you bring in an aggressive dog like that? Because even if they're separated, there has to be some kind of where they know it's there. And
yeah, so that's why, again, I'm just really particular about the types of dogs we bring in. I don't bring in like super barky dogs. I don't bring in dogs that are very loud in their kennels. Like if we do get anything like that, I tell the client like, hey, your dog needs to go home, because I don't want to disrupt the learning environment. When the dogs are in their kennels, it's supposed to be a calm place to be. I have had one dog where I had to send him home because he would just not relax at all. I didn't even have him for 4 hours, and I sent him home because I knew that that environment was not going to be beneficial for him. You can tell rather quickly if an environment is going to be beneficial for a dog. So I think, the way that I handle it is I make sure obviously the dog is pottied, fed, all the biological stuff is met like we talked about earlier. But if they still won't settle, I'm not the type of trainer to force a dog to settle in their crate if they're completely stressed out and they're having a hard time. If I have a dog that's trying to bite at the kennel, like that's not healthy for the dog. That's just going to get them stressed out. So generally speaking, they'll go home, and we'll just pivot their program to something different. So that way the dog can be successful and the human can be successful. Because it's really detrimental, in my opinion. Small amounts of stress are good for anybody, right? If you overcome stress, you can build confidence, build resilience, things like that. But if you have a dog that is just so persistent that will not settle, it's not healthy at all. It actually does more damage to their brain than it is successful for the dog.
well, yeah, well, people don't understand that when it comes to people too, about the a little bit of stress is good and actually helps you build.
Yeah.
What was like surprising when you started doing this about what you learn in psychology with people and how that crosses over to dogs? Like, what surprised you about it being so similar?
Yeah. About it being so similar. That's what I was gonna say. Is it's really similar. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the parts of the brain are very similar. I would say the biggest thing that I don't know if it's psychology necessarily. I mean, I guess it could be, but I would say the biggest thing I learned is that there are times where I don't give dogs enough breaks. Like they need time to sleep more because their brain has to form those new pathways in the brain. I'm very much like, my client's paying me this amount of money. I want to make sure I send home the best product that I possibly can. And there are times where I get a little bit too training happy, where I try to train the dog too much, and then the sessions don't go well because the dog didn't have enough time to sleep. They didn't have enough time to decompress and relax. So I would say that would be the biggest thing in the crossover between like human psychology and dog psychology, because it makes sense. Humans need to sleep too. Dogs are the same. And especially if you have like a short snouted dog, like a pug or a Frenchie, those types of dogs, they need even more sleep than like a lab.
Why?
Yeah. Because their face is so smushed, they can't breathe as well. Obviously we know that, right? They sound like a pig all the time. But they also, some of them can have sleep apnea at night, so it disrupts their sleep. They don't get that that uninterrupted sleep like a lab would, or a golden retriever, a dog that has a elongated snout to where they can effectively get airflow in their nose. So it explains why I have a Frenchie right now. It explains why early in the morning is not the time to train her. Like, it's not. Presley is just, she wants to wake up and play and go back to bed. So she is usually a like afternoon, like early afternoon training type dog. And it really makes sense because she probably doesn't, I'm sure she sleeps well, but she's probably breathes very heavy at night because she's trying to relax and her body is just trying to get as much air in as possible.
That's
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I just recently found that out and I was like, that makes so much sense. I would have never thought about that. So
I heard some of them die in their sleep a lot.
yeah, there's been a couple horror stories. You know, I'm sure people see all over the news or on Facebook and stuff of like dogs dying in trainers' care and things like that.
Oh, that's never happened to you, has it?
No, never.
Oh.
Never, never, never. Knock on wood. I'm just kidding. We don't need that. I'm very much like, you know, with short snouted dogs like that too, like you'd never put a fan on their face because they can suffocate if they're trying to breathe. And if they're trying to push air out and a fan is pushing air in, they're going to suffocate.
That's
so
nuts.
yeah, there's been stuff like that that's gone around the news. There's been places down in Louisiana that's happened. There was someone here that happened to, not the suffocating, but a dog dying in their care. So yeah, it's unfortunately a lot more common than it should be because people are just negligent.
Well, it's hard to know all this stuff. You spend, your whole life with the dogs and learn all this.
Yeah.
But how many people out there have a dog, they love dogs, but they just never found the information?
And the hard part is for dog training specifically, like we don't have any regulation. So what that means is like you don't have to pass a test to be a trainer. You don't have to have, certifications to be a trainer. Like you could open up your own dog training business if you wanted to and call yourself a trainer. Like there's no regulation for our industry. And so you get a lot of people that think they know what they're doing or they have good intentions, but it just doesn't come across that way. And so it makes ethical trainers or trainers that charge their worth look bad.
Okay, so how would someone go about vetting a dog trainer?
So a few things to look for is like, always ask if you can tour the facility or see where their dog is going to be staying. That's a big thing. If they tell you no, then, ask questions as to why. Why can't you see where their dog is going to be staying?
Yeah, well, I feel like if you're going to take your dog somewhere, you'd want to
be able to see. So home-based businesses like us are a little bit different than like a training facility per se. So for me, like my insurance, I don't allow people in my home, one, because it's my home. But also what we do instead is like I have a video of what our kennel room looks like. And I will send that to clients prior of like, this is what it looks like. This is where all of our crates are, how things are set up. They can come outside the house. It does not matter to me. But that's one of the things that I don't allow, mainly because I do also take in dogs that aren't people friendly. So I don't want to create a negative association with dogs that are already there when I open up that bedroom door and they see a stranger and they freak out, right? I don't want to do that. So touring the facility or getting pictures and videos, things like that is very important. The other thing I would say that people don't do enough is they don't ask for references. So if I was going to a dog trainer, even if they had Google reviews that are 5-star reviews, I would still ask the trainer for references of like, hey, do you have previous clients that I can speak to that have had my dog specific issues that you have helped? Because they can get a firsthand experience as to if they liked their trainer, how everything went, stuff like that. I wouldn't say certifications are important. I would say experience is more important. So social media, like I said earlier, is a huge indicator as to if the person knows what they're doing. So looking at their social media, seeing if their values align with yours and how you want your dog trained aligns with how that trainer trains. That's important too, because if I get a client that wants to do just positive reinforcement, we're a balanced training company. So what that means is I'll use tools like prongs and e-collars in addition to positive reinforcement. There are people out there that don't want to use tools on their dog, and their dog might not even need them. We don't know yet. But if I get a client that is just positive reinforcement, they don't want to use any sort of corrections or punishments, there's a time and a place for those. more than likely a dog is going to need one, but we don't know until we start the training process. So I usually will refer people out if that's what they want, is just positive reinforcement. And then I would say, oh gosh, that's a really good question. I think those three are the main things, touring the facility, making sure you can get references, and then making sure your training ideologies match, and then also, okay, another one I think would be, what does their after training process look like? Like, what do they offer post training? Like, do they offer support? If they don't offer support, like, why are they not offering support? Like, that's a big thing. Clients need support, whether they graduated a year ago or a week ago. They need support and they need help. So I would say those are the four main things if I was looking for a trainer. um, that's what I would look for sure.
Now, how do you vet clients? Like, you have to do you meet them somewhere, meet the
Mm-hmm.
dog, meet them, figure out the situation?
So most of the time, I can get a pretty good feel for a client over the phone. I ask all the right questions to make sure that this client is serious. Now, you do get people that just price shop. They just want to know what your prices are, and they want to try and find the cheapest trainer. But I also have like a 10 question questionnaire on the website that I require people to fill out before they get their free 30-minute eval on the phone. So once they do all that, if somebody will fill out a contact form, most of the time they're very serious about training because they've taken the time to go through the website, to look at the website, to read it, to read about us, what we do, all of that. And they're filling out a contact form. They usually are already sold on your training. They just want to know what it costs most of the time. So I just lost my train of thought.
So that basically vets them.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that, and then asking the right questions on the phone as well. Like, what's your time commitment? What's your schedule? Like, what do all these things look like? What's your day-to-day look like? Like, all these different things that you need to know the answers to in order to be able to tell if they're going to be a good client or not. If they're, working 16, 18-hour days, private lessons, one-on-one training is not going to be, the most beneficial for the client because they don't have time to do it. So, yeah, vetting, I usually can tell on the phone with people within the first 15 minutes if they just want somebody to talk to just because they're lonely or if they actually need help with training. So
how long did it take you to learn all that? Like, learn how to, was it?
It's still a learning process.
Yeah.
My old company, the one that I used to work for in Idaho, our boss, he would have us do like sales courses and continuing education with like how to pick up on specific words that people say. There are a lot of specific word tracks that people will say that indicates that they need help. A lot of the time it's trial and error, but it's also, you just talk to them like a regular person. If you're too salesy or you're too pitchy and you're just trying to sell them on your most expensive program, they're not going to use you for training because you're not relatable, right?
Yeah.
You can't relate to the client. And so the learning how to communicate effectively, and like, I'm very straightforward to the point with people, whether they're a client or they're not a client. I will tell them what they need, how much it's going to cost, and that's just kind of how it is.
How many mistakes did you make?
Oh, I make a lot of mistakes still.
What were the big ones though?
When I started my business or when I got into dog training, or both?
Oh, both. Yeah, let's do both.
So, oh gosh, okay. So when I first started dog training, of course you think you're just the coolest kid on the block, right? When you learn a new skill, you're like, I can do that. I don't need your help, yada yada. So I would say in the beginning, one of the biggest things that I struggled with, I was a young college kid. You think you know everything. You fly the nest and you leave home and you go off on your own and you think that you're hot stuff. So I was very much, I can do it. Thanks. Like, I don't need your input type of thing. And so that hindered me a lot in the beginning because I wasn't open to learning. I wasn't open to like taking different concepts from people and like taking what I like and leaving what I don't like and applying it to training. I think that was a really big mistake that I made. And also when I used to work there too, being involved in cliques. I mean, there were cliques at the job, and so getting involved in drama and clouding your judgment for training dogs, that was a really big issue that I had. But again, I was in college and thought I was the coolest thing ever. So I would say those are my two biggest things in the beginning of training, and not asking enough questions. Like I asked questions, but I wasn't asking to actually ask to learn. I was asking to make sure I was right. There's a big difference between the two of those, because your mindset is so different when you're asking to learn and you genuinely want to learn something versus just asking because you just want to make sure that what you're doing is right. It's good to have validation, but I think there's a very fine line between being cocky and confident, for sure. And then when I opened my business, uh, I would say the biggest mistake I made was not paying taxes quarterly. So they recommend you pay taxes quarterly. I didn't do that. I just paid at the end of the year. And while it's not bad, like I could pay the taxes, it makes it easier if you pay in increments versus having to pay one lump sum at the end.
Hurts a lot less.
It hurts a lot less, that's for sure. But I also did not get a business mentor until recently. Meaning, like, I didn't have somebody there to like teach me how to like write off things properly. I just went through and just checked it that it was a write off. And if you do too many write offs, it can hurt you in your business, because if you go to get pre-approved for a home, there's things you can add back to make sure, add back to your income, but there's a lot of things you also can't add back, so you don't want to write off too much. And also not setting aside expenses for or setting aside money for expenses that just might come up, like getting a flat tire or something like that, where you might not even think that you need to have that money set aside. But also making sure you can stretch your money on your slow months, because there are slow months throughout businesses where you don't make as much as you used to, or you didn't make as much in September as you did in August. So making sure you learn how to properly stretch that, because also if you don't work, you don't get paid. But April is always a slow month.
Why?
Taxes. It's tax season. So people don't want to spend, $4,000 to $5,000 on a training program when they have taxes that they have to pay.
Right.
So I would say those are the biggest things I wish I had somebody in the beginning teach me how to do, rather than learning it all on my own, because it would have saved me a lot of time. Would have saved me a lot of time and error, but you learn through error. So while yes, I would have wished I had somebody, I'm glad that I didn't, in a sense, because I figured it out all on my own.
Well, how did you find that mentor to help you teach?
So I have two. So my old boss at the training company in Idaho, Positive Pets Dog Training is their company. They actually do like the T-Dog and stuff for Boise State football, which is pretty cool. They have a dog that runs out and gets the tea and comes back. But the owner of that company, his name is Jim Clausen. He is one of the best human beings on this planet. He came from nothing and he built a multi-million-dollar company. And so he's like my second dad, and he will I'll call him a lot of the times, be like, I want to do this. How do I do it? Or he'll just call me to check up on me and say, how's business going? What are your numbers for the day? Like making sure you keep track of your numbers of how much income you're bringing in or how many clients you're signing. So I've known him for 5 years, and he's a godsend. And then my stepdad, his name's Michael. He is a small business consultant. So he was married to my mom when I was younger. And that's what he did, was he was a small business consultant where he helped people grow their businesses. And so now he's really my go-to guy that helps me with all of my stuff. Like we're currently in the process of looking for land to purchase to build like a indoor training facility here in Middle Tennessee, not just for my clients, but for dogs that want to go do agility, or they want to do stuff in the summer when it's too hot. They have an indoor space they can come and train and rent a pool for an hour and let their dog swim. So I would say, like, obviously I grew up with my stepdad, I call him my dad, but I grew up with him, so I already knew him. And then Jim, I just met through working at his company.
So when you left Jim's company to start your own, was that like a sad moment?
It was super sad. It was sad in a sense of like, I left behind like my family. They essentially, like, all the staff there were my family. And so yes, it was sad, but I still have support from them from 2,000 miles away, and they always will go and share my stuff on my business page
Oh,
to
that's
their
cool.
page, and I share their stuff on ours, and I talk to Jim very regularly. Um, so yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. It was sad. I miss them a lot, but I try to go back and visit and see them as much as I
Well,
can.
before you did that, did you talk to Jim and say, "This is I want to start my own thing," and then he kind of took you
Yeah.
under his wing?
So while you work there, while I worked there, every Tuesday we had 2 hour staff meetings where he would cover just about anything with us. I mean, there are different topics of every week, but a lot of them was business building and like how to build a successful business. And he would talk about things to do, things not to do. Um, and so, yeah, when I had mentioned to him, like, I want to open a business in Nashville, we had the conversation of, well, do you want to open your own business or do you want to franchise off of ours? And the only reason I didn't want to franchise was, I'll just be honest, like, I didn't want to have to pay somebody else money. I already have to pay so much in taxes that I didn't want to have to pay royalties on top of what I already had to pay. It would have been nice to just plug and play because it would have been a smaller franchise, but I wanted to really kind of make it my own and do my own thing. And I've taken a lot of concepts from them, and I still use a lot of their stuff, but there's a lot of stuff I don't use anymore that I've changed and things like that. So Jim has been very, very supportive. Like, you'd be surprised with, if I was still in Idaho, I think he would still be supportive, but we would be direct competition. They
That
have,
makes it easier that you're far away,
yeah,
huh?
they have a monopoly on Boise for sure. They've been the number one dog trainer for the last, oh gosh, 7 years in Boise, so they don't really have to worry about that as far as like competition. There is competition there, but it's healthy competition for sure.
That's awesome that Jim teaches his employees about starting a business.
Yeah.
Kind of helps them grow.
Yeah, it does, because he was literally poor. He was dirt poor, and he went in the Marine Corps and did that. And then when he got out, he didn't really know what he wanted to do. He used to work with like German Shepherds, Rottweilers, Dobermans. He used to do a lot of like protection type stuff, and then transferred over into the pet dog world. And all of his daughters, or two of his daughters, were actually professional trainers there as well. And so Britta is one of the girls. She's my best friend in the whole world. Like, she's my best friend, and she's taught me a lot too. So that whole Clausen family is very, very skilled in helping people succeed for sure.
How did you get in there?
I just applied. So they had an opening for like a office staff, and I had kind of had an interest in training dogs, but I wasn't really sure what it entailed. So I got hired as a office staff and started there, and I was like, I want to learn how to train. So generally speaking, if you express interest in learning how to train, they will teach you. So that's how I learned. So all my experience is hands-on. I've gone to a couple like seminars and stuff, and there's a really famous trainer. His name is Michael Ellis. I've been to his school out in California. Jim is actually really, really good friends with him. So we kind of got the hook up there, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I just applied for a job and learned, and now here we are. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Are there a lot of events in Nashville that you go to regularly, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of like dog friendly activities here, or like dog friendly events and stuff. Like, you've got all your farmers markets that are usually dog friendly. You can take your dogs in there. Um, you can go to, patios and breweries and stuff like that. They'll do like the dog days. I think it's called dog days. I could be wrong, but they do like yeah, it is the dog days of summer. It's at Cheekwood. They do that. We've gone there before. So yeah, we try to go to as many as we can. It's just a matter of keeping an eye on social media part,
Yeah.
just watching it and screenshotting it and adding it to the calendar to make sure that you allocate that time to take the dogs there. But we're big on, a lot of my clients are big patio people. So we do a lot of
Patio
like,
people.
yeah, they get to go sit at like breweries and stuff, and they want to take their dogs. So it's cool when I get to take a client dog and I get to go drink and train the dog too. So it's pretty fun. It's a cool trade off. We do a lot of that. So
How often do these events come up?
It depends. I know that the dog days of Cheekwood is only in the summertime, and I think it's like every Thursday. I could be wrong. They have it on their website, though. I know that for sure. But there's farmers markets every weekend that people can go to. Um, yeah, it's there. I think it depends on the event for sure, but those are the two main ones that a lot of people tend to go to is like farmers markets, and then the Cheekwood thing is really big. Nashville Sounds also does dog days too on Tuesdays, I think. Their games, you can take your dogs to the game. Um, so you just have to kind of keep an eye on stuff.
How many clients do you get from those events versus social media?
Most of my, I would say 90% of my clientele is from social media. I get a lot of clients from, there's a group on Facebook called the Nashville Girls Group. I get a lot of clients from there where it's literally just a bunch of women that are looking for anything. I mean, you can post anything in the group. I get some from events. It's really hit or miss. It just kind of depends on the event. I've done events where I don't get any clients, and then I've done events where I get clients that book me out for 3-4 months, and it's like, okay, well, we're booked
They
out a while.
they book you to take care of their dog and train their
Mm-hmm.
dog for that long?
In advance. So, like, let's say I meet somebody in January, but I'm booked until
Oh, okay.
April. I will get people that will wait, but there are some people that won't wait. So that's kind of the spot that we're at in business right now is it's time to hire somebody else and take on another trainer so that we can get more dogs in for training because our wait list is just keeps getting longer and longer.
Probably time to hire someone for social media too.
I know, I know, I know. That's what my
I can't
mom
believe you
that's what
haven't
my
done
mom
that.
says. No, I haven't. I have not hired somebody from it because it's yes, it's time consuming, but I'm already on my phone anyway, so I can just do it really fast. I'm that type of person. I have a really hard time delegating with things, like having people do things because I have really bad ADHD. And so it's hard for me to like not be controlling and want to do everything the way that I want to do it. Um,
I'm the
that's
opposite. I just if someone else wants to do it, good.
I
Do it
can't.
all.
I can't. I'm not. I am not a like. No, I have to do it to make sure that it gets done right. That's also probably a little bit of a control issue, but that's okay. It makes me successful, so it works to my advantage sometimes.
I'm trying to think what else should people know about having their dogs trained or just
Yeah.
what not to do when they get a dog in general.
Uh.
So they don't,
Yeah.
because you probably get clients that bring you their dogs and they're just doing so much stuff that if they would have just known not to do it, they wouldn't even have to bring their dog in.
I would say the the biggest thing is don't follow social media trainers, like your TikTok people that have like 5, 6, 7, 800,000 followers because they likely don't know what they're doing. They just grew that social media following because they get good traction or they're an attractive human being. Like that's a thing. There's a lot of people on social media that have no clue how to train a dog. They just look good in front of a camera. Um, but I would say if people get a puppy, take your puppy to a trainer 8 weeks old. Like the day you pick your puppy up, schedule a meeting with a trainer and take your puppy to a trainer because you have such a small window when that dog is young to really kind of mold them and shape them into like an environmentally sound dog. Meaning, like, if you want to go to a brewery and you don't take your puppy in those first 4 months of life, they're going to have a harder time adjusting to stress as they get older. Think of puppies like babies. They're like sponges. The more you can teach them when they're young, the better off they're going to be when they're older. So I would say that that's like the biggest thing is like set yourself up with a trainer before you bring your dog home, and don't follow social media. Social media, at least TikTok. I mean, there's so many things on TikTok that I see that I'm just like, I can't believe people follow this and they think this is effective. It's not going to work.
Do you ever fall into a social media trap of posting your puppies doing stuff and then just, oh my God, I can't wait to get all the likes?
Yeah, I don't post a ton on like TikTok or anything, but I like to post like not only training content, but I'll post like funny stuff that dogs do
Oh, you have
too.
to.
Yeah, because it has to be a good balance. It can't just be train, train, train all the time. Like dogs have to have that time where they can run around and, eat geese poop or roll in deer poop or whatever, right? Just like be a dog. The Frenchie that I have right now, her favorite thing in the whole entire world is to roll in the grass. Like that's her favorite thing. So every day on social media, we get our daily Presley rolling in the grass video because it's her favorite thing to do, and I'm not going to deny her of doing that. So it's a healthy balance for sure. And I'm very transparent on social media. Like I don't just post the good stuff. I post when dogs mess up or when they have challenges, so people can see that just because you post good stuff on social media like doesn't mean the dog doesn't struggle and doesn't go through hard sessions or sessions where they're not understanding and you just need to give them a break. So it's more of a, it's, I would say it's almost kind of like a work play balance, you know, however you want to word that, but something like that for sure.
What do you usually feed the dogs?
So the clients bring their own food for their dogs. And I do that because a change of diet and a change of environment can cause stress in a dog. And so we just want to keep everything as baseline as possible. Um, so they bring their own food and like their own treats because there are dogs that have allergies or they have sensitivities. And so it's just easier for the client to bring all that stuff for them.
You ever have a dog be like, no, I want this dog's food because my
Yeah.
owners feed me like crap?
Yes. You get dogs that get fed like pretty low quality kibble. And I have a conversation with the client about it. Like I have a dog, the 6 week dog that I have right now, she was on a low quality kibble that had a lot of fillers in it, like corn and things that just aren't good for dogs. And so we had a conversation of getting weight off of her and switching her to a different food that will help get the weight off of her. Um, so yeah, I mean you get dogs that are, they'll scoff their nose at their food because their owners have potentially accustomed them to adding toppers or putting things in their food to get them to eat, which is like the worst thing you could do.
Could you imagine just growing up in a house where what you were fed every day, just
Yeah.
it's not really edible, so they have to like put stuff on top of it to get you to eat?
Yeah, it
Like
gets,
anyone watching this should imagine
yeah.
living that way.
It gets to a point where you're like, okay, what do I try now? Like what can we try today that'll get you to eat? Like, so, and a lot of the times it just doesn't have any value because it's been left out all day long for the
Well,
dog.
what should dogs eat? What is good for them and what should be
Well,
avoided?
I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't really speak on like what's good necessarily, but you really want to look at like the ingredient list. If you don't know what it is, I personally wouldn't feed it. You know, there are a lot of like your big name brands that they just put a lot of filler in their food. Like they put a lot of corn or they put soy or they put beans in there, and like our dogs don't need that sort of stuff. I have a dog that's on a raw fed diet. It's been the best thing for him, and then the rest of my dogs are on a high quality kibble and they get raw supplemented too, and it's the best thing for them. You know, they don't, dogs don't need all of that crap, all the filler and stuff. So I would say like if there's anybody watching that their dog has had gastrointestinal issues, like the best thing they could do is take their dog, you know, to a vet and talk to their vet about it, or even find a pet nutritionist because that's a thing. And you can speak to a nutritionist about how to add things into your dog's diet to make sure that they're not just eating crap all the time. Because most dogs do, they eat crap and
Yeah,
they're fat because of it.
and I feel like people just don't even think about what they're feeding their dog.
They
You know,
don't.
it says dog food on the package, so it must be fine.
Yeah.
And that's just a scary thought
Yeah.
to be that dog.
That's eating crap food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun for them at all. I'm very like, I read the labels on everything. Like I'm super particular about what I feed my dogs.
Is there a particular brand that you like?
Personally, I'm a really big fan of Victor. Even though they just had their recall and they pulled all their food off their shelves, it's now like coming. Their food is starting to come back, and they fixed the. I think it was a. I don't remember what the issue was actually off the top of my head, but I really like Victor. I have a lot of friends that are trainers at Feed Pro Plan. I have a lot of people that I know that feed a Nook Shook. So it just really depends on the type of dog that you have. If you have a sport dog, you're going to want to feed something that has most likely a little bit of a higher fat content because their metabolism is going to be working so fast. My working dogs, I have my two that I classify as my working dogs. I mean, like my sport dogs that I do dog sports with. My one, he's the one that's raw fed. He's a completely raw fed diet. He doesn't eat any kibble. And then I have my Australian Shepherd. He's on a high quality kibble with some raw supplement in there too. So you just have to assess the dog as far as what they need, but you just don't want to give, too much fat or too much protein and not enough activity, because then the scale could go up a little bit.
Do you train clients' dogs for sport stuff, or is it just behavior?
I just do like pet obedience and things like that. I don't do sports. If I have a client that's interested and I know how to teach it, I'll help them. But generally speaking, I refer out to, there's a trainer in Gallatin. Her name is Jody Weatherford. She owns Paws Canine. She has a sport facility out there, and she is your frisbee girl, agility. She's got a dock diving pool out there. So I will usually refer my clients.
Dock diving pool?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I will refer my clients out there to her, so that way she can teach them the proper sport foundations, because I don't really know how to teach that stuff. I just do it with my dogs because they're naturally good at it. So I don't want to, take somebody's money and then be telling them the wrong thing.
Right.
I just send them to Jody because Jody knows what she's doing. So.
Do you hire anyone to even clean up?
No, I do it all.
No?
Mm-hmm.
Even the cleanup?
Yep, I do. I scoop the yard every day.
How long does that take?
It depends. So if I do it daily, it'll only take me about 10-15 minutes. If I go like 3-4 days without scooping it, it takes me a while. Because you have to think, like right now I have 9 dogs at the house. If they each poop twice a day, that's a lot of poop.
Yeah.
And they're not small dogs. They're all big. I only have one small dog right now. I have the little Frenchie. All of the rest of them are 30 plus pounds. So they're not the small dogs. So, but it doesn't take too long. I mean, I'm pretty quick, like my ADHD. I'm just very fast. So it's beneficial because I'm efficient and I can do it really quickly. But, if you don't stay on top of your cleaning and that sort of stuff, that's when it takes a long time, because rather than just spending 30 minutes a day cleaning, now you're spending 3 hours on a Sunday cleaning everything when you could have just done 30 minutes a day and maintained it. So
I can't believe you don't hire someone for that.
I need to.
Yeah.
It's not too bad though. I mean, like I said, we don't have like a big facility. They're in a bedroom at my house. They all have their own little spots. So I'll wipe their crates out daily. We clean the water buckets daily. All of that stuff is just, they go outside. I pull their buckets. I take them to the sink. I dump them in the sink. I let them soak, scrub them out, put them back in the kennel. So we have a really good system down to where it's like, it kind of does the work for me a little bit. So, I mean, I still do it, but like the buckets soak, so at least that's being done, that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's a lot. I love it though. Like, yes, I'm exhausted at the end of every day, but I would rather be exhausted and like be building something for my future kids, hopefully, than work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like working for other people. The freedom that you have when you're a business owner, and the freedom to do things the way you want to do them and how you want to do them, and, not take a client. I don't have to take every client. That's the nice thing, is when I work for somebody else, if you're at a large scale like that, it's really difficult to pick and choose because you have, monthly expenses that you have to pay. I just pay for my mortgage and utilities and things like that. Like I don't have a big overhead. I keep the costs as low as I possibly can. So
you're talking about building a facility.
Mm-hmm.
How long is that going to take, you think?
I have no clue. I just texted my realtor today and asked her to look for land for me. Yeah. So the goal is to build an indoor training facility. Again, not just for like current clients, but anybody in Middle Tennessee that wants to learn how to do agility or like a tricks class or whatever the case is. I have a friend that's going to come work for me and teach all that stuff.
Oh, okay. So you're going to hire someone?
Yeah, I'm going to hire somebody for that. Yeah. When I get to that point and the facility's open and stuff, like I already have a trainer that's going to come and work for me, that she lives in Middle Tennessee. And I'm like, you can have free reign to teach whatever you want, whenever you want. I'll pay you. You can do whatever. But it's a huge market that Middle Tennessee does not have. So I'm like trying not to tell a lot of people about it because I don't want another trainer to come in and like take it. Yeah, I don't want somebody to come in and take my idea. So that's why I'm starting the process now, because the build is probably going to take, I would say, maybe 18 months. probably.
It's exciting though, right?
It is exciting. It just has to be a huge facility, and land is so expensive, and costs for buildings are so expensive right now. So it's not going to be a cheap investment, but it'll be worth it in the long run for sure, because it'll be something that'll be here forever.
Right, right.
So I'm excited about it, but I'm also nervous because my pocketbook is not going to like me after that. Temporarily, but it's also, with the business. So it's not personal debt necessarily, but it's a business move. Real estate is always a good move, no matter what the market looks like. It's always a good time to buy real estate because you'll make money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, think of what that'll be worth in 30 years.
I know. It'll be a huge pole barn. Can see what I want in my head. I just have to do it and make it happen now.
Have you been out to see a location physically yet?
No, not yet. So I'm trying to find somewhere that's within an hour of Nashville. So I basically just had my realtor give me an hour in any direction, because that's most likely what distance people are going to want to drive. And you can't really find 5 acres affordably in Davidson County. You're going to have to go to Rutherford, Bedford, Maury. You're going to have to go about an hour outside of Nashville to find that. So there's a couple options. I'm just trying to find the best lot, because I'll also build a house on it too.
Ooh.
So that's the plan, is to try to find a 5-acre tract where I could build a training facility at the front, and then my house at the back.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited for
you.
Yeah,
I'm excited too. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
18 months seems so long when that's the goal.
It'll go by pretty fast though, I would assume. Oh, it's raining. Sorry. I was like, what is that noise?
Oh no, I think is it really rain?
Oh no, it's her car. Yeah. See, ADHD. My brain goes all over the place.
All right, well, you want to tag your socials and
Yeah. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's literally just what's on this shirt. It's 4 Paws Canine Training, the number 4, word paws, the word canine. Anybody that's watching, if you do decide to sign up for training, you can get up to $200 off a training program. All you have to do is mention the podcast name, and we'll happily get you guys started on some training and go from there.
All right. Well, I'm going to link all those in the
Perfect.
description.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. What's up, guys? If you like the podcast, leave a like, comment, subscribe, share. Down in the description, we have links to all of 4 Paws Canine Training socials. We also have a link where you can sign up for the email list. If you sign up right now, you get $10 off when you pre-order a box of Flash Trash bags.